Why we have to use his sexy sweater is because there was one time, 4th of July, it's a huge holiday in my wife's family. They get together, they have a lake cabin, and so they get out there on the lake. We're having a cookout, and then Maggie's older brother, one of her older brothers, gets a bunch of fireworks. And this is the first year that he's ever tried to do the fireworks. And so he goes out on the dock. He has this piece of plywood that he props up so one end is on the dock and one end is on like a log, so it will shoot out into the lake or over the lake. And so he lights them off, and there's like a bunch on this little tiny board. He's never done this before, and they're going off, and we're all in the cabin. The screens are open because it's hot summer in Minnesota, and we're watching the fireworks while Chris, her brother, is out on the dock doing his thing. And then all of a sudden, the board shooting off like this over to the lake goes like this on the log and shoots into the cabin that we're watching. And so CeeLo has never had a problem with thunderstorms or with fireworks before, but now, ever since that 4th of July, he's terrified of the thunderstorm, and he's terrified of fireworks and loud bangs and things like that. So he has his sexy sweater, like his thunder shirt. But that's kind of how it goes, right? I mean, sometimes we get our expectations so high for something, for some event or some conclusion or some reward, and then we get there and something bad happens. Or our expectations aren't met, and then all of a sudden we're in a bad mood. Like the other day, I woke up and there wasn't enough milk in the fridge for both Maggie and myself to have cereal, and so I had to go get more. And it started out my day on not the right foot. That happens. Our expectations are not met. On the flip side, there are some days where everything seems to go exactly right. Any Harry Potter fans in here? I'm raising my hand, so it's not embarrassing for you to raise yours. Okay, awesome. Well, there's this one part where Harry wins this potion. It's called Liquid Luck. And if you drink this potion, everything in your day goes the best that it can possibly go. It's the perfect day. It's like, let's see, what was my example here? Oh, yeah. So my example, a perfect day on Sunday morning is we're having a great worship, and then coming forward for communion, a small child puts out their hand for the bread for the first time. That's like my perfect day for worship. We all have an idea in our mind of what a perfect day would look like. I'm guessing that in our Markan story, when these friends carry their paralyzed friend, their paralytic friend, to Jesus, that they were not envisioning a forgiveness. I think they were probably envisioning what happens at the end of the story, him becoming healed, him walking out of the door. They bring their friend to Jesus, I'm guessing, in the hopes of healing. But that wasn't Jesus' plan, right? The first thing Jesus says, son, your sins are forgiven. Now, in my mind, that would constitute an unmet expectation. I'm wondering if in that moment there was not some disappointment, especially in the friends who went through all this work of bringing their friend to the roof and then undoing the roof and coming up with some sort of pulley system to lower their friend down so Jesus can have a look at him. But, in fact, by the end of the story, we are seeing that this is, in fact, a liquid luck sort of day. Everything goes right for this man. His sins are forgiven. He gets up, he walks out of the door. You see, this story is not about God meeting our expectations. This isn't a story about God healing. This is a story about God bringing us to wholeness. You see, we all come to God for various reasons. Sometimes we come to God because we're happy. Maybe we come to God because we're hopeful. Maybe we come to God because we are in despair and we know of no other place to turn. Maybe we come to God because we are hurt and broken. Maybe we come to God because we are alone. Maybe we come to God because we are empty. Our human predicament is a complicated one. Each of us in this room is a complicated person made up of times and places and events and relationships and memories and traditions. Everybody in this room is completely different than the person sitting next to them. And yet, for all of those differences and all of those complexities, we come to God for so many various reasons, but we do not come to God hoping for healing as much as we hope for wholeness. Sometimes we don't know what wholeness looks like. Sometimes we think what wholeness looks like. Sometimes we think we know what we need. But God has a vision for our world that is not broken, but a vision for our world that is instead whole. Sometimes that vision includes healing. Always that vision includes justice. Always that vision includes love. Always that vision includes relationship. Always that vision includes wholeness. When we come broken and hurt, that is not because God would have us be broken and hurt. That is because the world in which we live would have us be broken and hurt. When we come alone and feeling isolated, that is not because God would have us be alone. That is because our world is broken, and aloneness is a symptom of our broken world. If we come hungry or in poverty or injustice or oppression or in chains, that is not because God would have us be in those places, but because our broken world would have us be in those places. In this place, where we have been lowered down into this sanctuary, where we have been lowered into a place where we come close to Christ, where we will taste his body and blood. In this place where we come in close proximity to a meal filled with grace and mercy and love and wholeness, we have hope that God will do wondrous things for us. In this story, we find that God does not do something either for an individual or for the world. God does not either equip us to serve or equip us to wholeness, that it is a both and. When I worked at camp in Minnesota, I was a day camp coordinator. And so we would send a couple of counselors to churches in the area who couldn't afford to send their kids to camp. We would send them counselors, and we'd have camp at their church. And so it was my job to coordinate these counselors that we sent out. And one of the first things that they taught their leadership staff is that you can't care for others until you've cared for yourself. I think there's some truth to this. You can't care for others until you've cared for yourself. And so every day, you know what the word siesta? You know the word siesta? So every day after lunch, we would take a half an hour. If I was working at the camp, we'd take a half an hour. We'd send our kids to their cabin. We'd say, okay, you have to have quiet time. I don't care if you sleep, but you have to be quiet, lights off. And the counselors got to have some quiet time. And we were also on a rotation. When we had large group recreational activities, we were on a rotation so the staff could go into the staff cabin and just be for a little bit. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. Now, the hard part of this is knowing where is that line between caring for yourself enough to care for others and caring for yourself only. So where is the line? That's a challenge. But that's not the message of today's gospel. Today's gospel tells us that God cares for us. No matter how insurmountable our problems may seem, God provides friends to bring us to the floor. God provides friends to bring us to Christ. God provides friends to bring us hope. God provides a means for our healing. God provides a means for our forgiveness. In this story, this is a story of God's provision. This isn't just a story about healing. This isn't just a story about wholeness. This is about God seeing what we need even before we see it. This is a story about God envisioning a future that we can't yet imagine. And so we come to this place for many reasons. And we come to God